Hello, everyone, and welcome to an all new Deep Cuts Live. This is a special Deep Cuts. We have a guest who's making his third appearance on Deep Cuts and someone who's been in the headlines a lot for the last couple of weeks. So, we're going to be speaking to Mr. Matt Booth of Room 101. So, let me just go ahead and bring on our guests.
Hi, Antoine.
Mr. Booth, how are you?
I'm great. And how are you, man?
I'm doing well. It's busy. I don't know about you, but I'm getting ready to travel for the first time in a while to Vegas for this PCA. So the last
Oh,
couple
I'll
of
see you
weeks
out
has
there, man.
been, yeah. So, and I know that your booth is right next to Michael Herklotz's booth. So those are like
That is
two booths
correct.
that are on my schedule of people that I want to see. And it's nice that you all are right next to each other this year. So
I
looking
like to be
forward to
close to
that.
my friends. I'm very shy, as you know, and it provides
Oh
me
yeah,
with a safety
definitely.
blanket. And by the way, speaking of
Definitely.
shy, I couldn't help but notice. We just watched the beautiful introduction clip for your show, right? And I
Mhm.
noticed there are no images of me in that. I was just a little awkward. Um, Figured that might be
There's no
a
images of
standard
there's no
thing.
images of
You know,
anyone.
what's that?
That's like one of those like year three investments. So hopefully hopefully we can make the investment to make a better intro. I think when I had that made, I was like, can you make it look like The View? Like when you have like Whoopi and Joy and Sarah
Hmm.
and all of that, and they're like, no, this is what you get. So
Oh no, there should
so
be no one else. I think the intro's fine. I think that there should just a picture of me should just like come into the screen for a second and leave, and that's it. And almost in a way that's very jagged and almost inappropriate for what's going on, so that people question if that was even supposed to happen. And I think that that would be a very nice touch. What do I know? Obviously it's your show. I think that would be nice. Just
I
saying.
just like it. It'll be like what Matt Damon is to Jimmy Kimmel. It'll be like Matt Booth will float on the screen for no apparent reason, and we'll run out of time for you every episode. Unfortunately, like Jimmy Kimmel says, I don't know if you watch that show, but
I do
every
not,
episode,
but it sounds
yeah,
delightful.
it's like a running gag at the end of the episode. Jimmy Kimmel, he always says, "Oh,
Mhm.
sorry, Matt Damon, ran out of time for you. Maybe next time." And it's just been ongoing now for
Damn.
like a couple of years.
Sassy. Sassy, man. Look at them. I wonder what the
Yeah.
backstory is with that. That would be interesting. Matt Damon probably canceled on them one time, and Jimmy Kimmel was like, "Oh, okay, I got you."
So the news came out that that STG had acquired Room 101 cigars,
You know what?
not the whole brand,
You know
but
what?
just the
They did
cigar part.
that. They did that. They did
Right.
do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it was this
yeah.
whole big news thing. And I think I don't know about from your perspective, which is what we're going to get today, but just going through social media, going through Facebook, and there's even some YouTube stuff that came up with everybody doing their own takes on it. What was
Hmm.
your, I guess, to start off with, like you've had a couple weeks now to see the reactions, and I'm sure there'll be more reactions as it came out. What was your reactions to everybody else's reactions?
I mean, I got to be honest with you. I've been far busier reaching out to our core consumers and retail partners and and communicating directly with them my messaging to have the time to really troll the internet for um, a lot of comments and reactions. I've seen a few, and some have been brought to my attention by other people, so I'm getting around to it. I'd say that across the board, anybody that's actually an operator in the game, a peer, or someone that has been by my side in terms of our brand related to support or retail partners, all of it has been very positive, um, and congratulatory. And I think that they're very happy for us and the brand, because they know that this is going to do exactly what we've set out to do in regards to this partnership. Is this is going to empower our brand beyond where we could have on our own. as a small craft company, and it's actually pretty magnificent. You know, um, I've heard that some people need to sippeth upon the beverage of haterade to quench their insatiable thirst, and I greatly appreciate all of the additional promotional efforts that have been exercised on their behalf. I suppose, you know, what do they say? When people can't do, they teach, or something like that. Well, in the business world, when people can't do, they hate. So, for all that additional free publicity, I am greatly appreciative, and thank you for continuing Room 101's ongoing charted success.
Yeah, it's funny that no, what they used to say. I don't know if they still say it in
Hmm.
2022, but they used to say that no press is bad press. You know, so
Well, it's
whether
all
it was
very
good or bad.
interesting. It's all very interesting, man. And I happen to, I think across the board, we've always, and I don't really want to dwell on this subject for a long time, but I have I kind of have a knack for earning people's respect, and rightfully so, right? And I do mean it when I say earn. It's not given, it's earned. I think that for the most part, we don't receive a great deal of kind of that negative troll sauce that frequents the internet machine, on a regular. I think that this was such grandiose news, and it's the first look, man. This is the first craft company in our industry, in the history of our industry, that's been acquired by one of the majors. This is a new thing, right?
Mhm.
And so when you kick up enough dust, man, you can't help but to have that come along for the ride. It's just part of the deal. And if you don't have that, I quite frankly don't think you're doing it loud enough, strong enough, big enough. It's just how it works. It's a byproduct. It's just like helium is a byproduct of another process, right? They don't go out and mine for helium. They get it as offput from another process. But yet it's turned into this delightful thing that you can float balloons up to the sky and wave at them for 45 minutes, or you can suck it into your little mouth pipe and then make a very funny cartoon like noise. So even that offput is then used for something positive. And I think that in any case, we use all energies directed at our brand in a way that's positive, even if it doesn't outwardly seem positive in the beginning.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
and somewhat.
Did it sound
It,
like I know what I'm doing?
well,
I like to sound like
always
I know
know
what
what
I'm
you're
doing.
doing. You always know what you're doing. It's like you just like to take people into the journey sometimes with your explanations. So instead of like a straight path, it's like we're going to deviate over here a little bit. We're going to deviate over there a little bit, but we're going to end up at the destination that we intended.
When we started doing business in Japan with our silver brand, we had an agent over there that ushered us into that market, and I had to show up and do a lot of like trunk shows and in-store appearance type things, and I would travel with a translator, and he was completely fluent. He was a Japanese kid that was born in LA to immigrant parents, and so he spoke like authentic from day one English, but also authentic day one Japanese.
Hmm.
And his name was Hiroki, and he used to tell people, or tell me, he said, I have to tell all of these people that I'm not just translating English. He said, I'm translating you, because I have to translate the sentiment of your message, because your words, if I just translated your words, they would think, in the actual fuck is this man talking about?
I think that was a good way of him putting it.
Hmm.
But
He wasn't wrong.
when I read the news about Room 101, it just made me think of again like how the cigar industry is changing and is evolving. And
100%.
so, and I guess when I saw people's reactions, you can't help but to think all these other things like how opposed we are to change and how we usually think that change automatically
Hmm.
now. is something bad.
Yes,
We
sir.
always go to the bad place. We don't never say like, well, this could be actually a good thing. And so like if you thought more about the Room 101 thing, and I read into things a lot. So when I looked at the press release and I saw that they actually had Regis comment comment on it and what he had said about the acquisition, I was like, it's a good thing because I don't think Regis would have gotten involved. I don't know, I know of Regis and I've dealt with him a little bit, but I don't think he would have gotten involved and said what he said if it wasn't, if they really weren't, they kind of saw Room 101 as like being a good future for STG and for Cigar Company and saw the big potential in it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I can't, I could only echo your sentiments, man. I mean, Regis not only is an oddly attractive gentleman, he is also a very shrewd businessman, right? And so I think that Room 101 was probably the most well-rounded uh, fill in the blank brand opportunity at this stage of the game in the business, whether it's craft or boutique or, as I like to say, salon. You know, if they were looking to authentically expand into the craft category, which they were and are, um, they were the first large company to get, to step outside of the framework of the box of tradition and say, you know what, we're not going to be able to test tube baby a brand like this. We have to come with the real deal. And we have to find a viable partner, both in brand and in person, to help pilot this effort, help us pilot the effort. And that's what I think is so exciting about this. I mean, I think that, I think that if this was 6 years ago, Room 101 would have been as absorbed into uh, a much larger company and probably destroyed. You know,
Mhm.
with any entity. I'm not just personalizing this with STG. I think that their entire company is aligned with the idea that um, craft segment is a viable market, a viable segment of the market. That as their main company directive is premium cigars and to grow in the premium category, that includes the craft segment. That's a long since verified, viable component of our business. And they made, I think, the right decision in terms of how they wanted to enter that space. And I'm very proud to be partners with them in that effort. This is both disruptive, which I have a knack for and very much enjoy participating in, and it's innovative, man. It's the first acquisition of its nature, and this isn't just like, hey, we're going to buy a brand and kind of throw some shit at the wall and see what sticks. This is a chess move on both
So,
of our
so how
parts.
far back has, because I think what got people was like there's no inkling that you were interested in letting your brand be acquired. So how far back did this process go?
My
Like,
man, do you think I'm doing this for my health? Clearly
no.
not. None of us are, you know? No brand owner. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, look, I wouldn't have done this, period, if I wasn't fully confident that their intent was true and just in terms of the care and preservation of the authentic nucleus of our brand. This would have been a non starter for me. But simultaneously, to only reinforce the fact that we have a shared vision in regards to this, I think it would have been a non starter for them for me not to be amenable to staying as a director because they want that guidance. This is a space that they don't play in. I mean, they're a gigantic star destroyer, and I'm an X-wing fighter, right? Far more nimble by design, and that's how, as a craft brand, we're able to achieve a lot of the things that we have is because of the fact that as a star destroyer has to turn itself around and takes a great amount of time. We can zip and pivot and continue to create, and that's really, um, I think, um, one of the key components of our success thus far. And so they didn't want to encumber us in a way that would prevent us from operating in a similar fashion.
Yeah, and I think with a lot of acquisitions, you can either go either way, where you can just acquire it just to have it in your portfolio and you save it for a rainy day, if you're a
Hmm.
bigger company, or you actually have a plan. And I was saying to people in this little audio podcast we did last week was that if you have followed STG and you look at their financial stuff and they have their roadmap for the next couple of years kind of mapped out, like it makes perfect sense, because how can you become I forget their exact phrasing, but they really want to become like the leader in handmade cigars, especially here in the US.
Hmm.
And how far can you go with what you already have? Like until you start to like have these brands like Room 101. The great thing about Room 101 is like this is a brand that already has a following, it already has accounts opening. And as you
Hmm.
said, this new partnership just empowers Room 101 to get even bigger than it could, without the acquisition.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, this is also an act of finesse, because yes, it will empower us, but this power, with great power comes great responsibility, Antoine, as we know. And so the goal is to empower, but manage its empowerment and its path, its growth path, so that it is not overpowered, you know, to maintain um, our core clients support, right? To maintain our brand as it was, only to turn the volume knob up on the existing source material. And that's the goal and the shared
And
vision.
what what also made me laugh a little bit was that you had this press release that pretty much had statements from you, had statements from Regis, had statements from STG. It kind of
Hmm.
explained everything, and yet people still ran amok with this press release. Like they made their own interpretations
Yeah,
off
I think people like
of
to read between the lines when there's nothing to read between, and
right.
they like to fabricate their own universe. Obviously, the message was very potent, right, and provocative. So, a lot of people, when things of that nature come to be, they will latch onto it and try to leverage it to their advantage. Whether it's they just want somebody to click on their video one more time, or whatever the case may be, right? It's all in an active positioning around something like that.
What was like the one, like I'm sure you've seen some misconstrued things that people have completely taken out of context in that press release. What's been like the one thing that you're like, that's not what it said, or that's not what we meant by it?
Well, I mean, well, look, I think that when anything of this happens, it's human nature that there will be some questions, right? Does reality really match up with their message? And I understand that. And that's why I'm making a point to connect with everyone I possibly can, to reinforce what has already been put out there into the universe, man. I mean, this is, if anyone had their reservations or felt like, oh, here we go, Room 101 is just going to be chewed up by this huge company. I mean, that's absolutely not true. You know, in fact, we've all worked very, very hard to build a system here that protects Room 101, you know, and I, as its caretaker, am tasked. One of my chief tasks is ensuring that that is the case, right? So, STG is not absorbing our existing cigar production, maniacally taking, our cigar production away from William Ventura or Hoya. In fact, we're bolstering the numbers there and continuing to develop more products with them, as is appropriate for our brand, and I think that, but here's the deal. If there are some reservations, that's fine. That's my word. So that will satiate. There are people that understand, like, if I say it, that's what it is, and they respect that. Now they are consoled. If someone needs to see it, well, you just stand by and you watch me do what I do. And you watch us as we approach market with ultimate respect and care for Room 101 as a cigar brand. And then you will also be consoled, you know? Um, I think that that was the main takeaway from that, right? And that's why that was in my messaging, was I wanted people to understand that, because it could have been different. What do they know? They weren't there. They weren't party to the negotiations and all that. So like, how would they know what the real sentiment was if I didn't tell them?
I think most people is, and this is coming from me who deals with writing, not press releases, but stories and stuff from people,
Mm-hmm.
is that over the years, I've seen people, it used to be like 10 years ago when I first got into the industry, most cigar people loved to read stuff and they would
Mm-hmm.
consume whatever. They would get these magazines, Cigar Aficionado, Tobacconist, and whatever, and they would read from cover to cover. And now it's so hard to get people with social media and the internet and everything being so fast paced. It's almost
They
like the
want
beginning.
TikTok videos.
Right. And it's almost like the beginning of that.
We should
Madonna.
make a TikTok video, Antoine, about this.
Right. I mean, no, but
That's a good idea that you
we
have.
laugh, but it's like I've been having these conversations with people lately. It's like you really have to think of the channels that consumers are using now to get the messaging across. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like the press release said
Mm-hmm.
everything you need to say, but who's going to read the press release? Is it going to be people like me who read books
Mm-hmm.
all the time and stuff like that? And then, or people are going to read halfway through. Like I always look at when I post stuff on LinkedIn, for example, it'll say this is a 2-minute article. But then I go to like the analytics, and it's like people spent like a minute and 30 seconds. So there's something that they didn't get unless they're are speed readers. That
Right.
and
Right.
I think that was probably the case with the press release. Is like some media outlets post the whole press release. Some of them post pieces of it, or some of them rewrite it. So it's like what messaging is, and that creates, I think, these days the confusion. And then you have people who don't read at all, so they're going to hear what somebody tells them. So if there's
Mm-hmm.
somebody on Instagram or there's YouTube who puts out there what the news was,
Mm-hmm.
are they going to
Yeah.
actually go through and find their original source and say, well, that's not what it said. It said this. So it's just like the times, unfortunately, that we live in, that it
Mm-hmm.
just creates confusion. That's why media wise, I found that you have to kind of deliver that message in a video format, in an audio format, like you said, in a TikTok, 3 second, 15-second format. And
TikTok, man.
it's like all the stuff you have to do now to get the message across. It's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. But you know what, man? That's part of the job, and part of my job is to make sure that that message resonates as much as humanly possible. You know, because I want people to hear it from me. I want them to hear the truth. I want them to understand what our mission is, and the reasons for this acquisition are all based on the empowerment of Room 101. You know, they all center around the fact that this is the best thing that possibly could have happened to this cigar brand at this stage of its development. You know, and now it's time for the next level.
Yeah. And do you see you being one of the, I always refer to that cigar press cover with you and Pete Johnson and John Hoover and all these other
Mm-hmm.
figures, Jonathan Drew and Dion and all these other big figures in boutique. Do you think we're entering into a phase of the industry where some of these larger companies that need to, you know, control, like not control, but need to expand their footing in the industry, like they're going to start looking, you know, throughout the industry and saying like, is this a viable brand that we can bring in and empower? Or do you think it's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be business as usual? Because the cigar industry is very slow to like adapt to
Well,
like,
yeah, nobody wants to be first, but we've already been first. And here's the deal: there will be competitors that see the chess move, that understand the dynamics and understand the value. And you know, this is the first craft brand to be acquired by a major entity in our business, but it will surely not be the last, right? So, as the kids say, I think we're going into acquisition season, if you catch my drift. So, but here's the deal: by the time they get a contender on the starting blocks, I'm going to be 2 years ahead of them. So this is all about continuing to take point in the continuous development of the craft segment of this market. That's what we're doing, you know.
yeah, like where do you, what can you share with us? Because I know you can't share some stuff, but what can you share with us about where Room 101, the cigar brand, goes from here?
Well, look, I think, you know, it's going to grow in ways that I could not have supported personally as a small family-owned business, and that's going to include global reach, intelligently, not whorishly. You know, we're going to grow this brand strategically and in a healthy fashion with a healthy footing, the right retail partners, and just continue to beat the drum together. Does that make
Right.
sense? I
Yeah.
said many things without saying much, but it's true. But it's true. This will mean global reach for Room 101, but honestly and effectively, and not in a way that corrodes the craft nucleus of our brand spirit.
Well, yeah, and I would imagine that it frees up some of your time that you don't have to worry about some of those tasks that, as a sole brand owner, you were having
Yeah.
to tackle on your own. Now there's other people who can take away some of those not so fun tasks, and that's always something that we talk about on Deep Cuts with a lot of the
Yeah.
cigar owners and Michael Herklots especially about Instagram gives people this impression that the cigar industry is just one big party, like you just travel, you smooze, you hang out with people, but they don't see those like not so fun parts of where you're like hunched over a computer for hours or your own phone call after phone call trying to track
Hmm.
down what's happened to this order, or where are these bands at,
Yeah.
what is the cellophane coming from, what shortage is impacting this order. There's so much
Hmm.
other stuff that people don't see that gives them this impression like they don't know what work goes into getting that box of cigars into their local tobacconist.
Yeah. I don't think many people are conscious as to just how heavy of a grind this is for all brand owners. And honestly, man, they shouldn't. They shouldn't be taken to meet the wizard. You know, they should be left in a state of euphoric enjoyment of our products and the ability to psychologically connect and immerse themselves in whichever brand's uh, cloud of pheromone dust that they wish to, right? With which, what brand or brands they most psychologically align to, and be a part of something. You know, that weight is meant to be carried and shouldered by us, but the weight is very heavy. And I think the weight is far heavier than they would ever imagine, you know, in such a business of enjoyment, I might add, right?
Yeah.
So for me, the empowering moment here is that now I have a team. I have a team of salespeople in the streets every day that are animals and out there for blood. And on behalf of myself and the Forged brand portfolio, I have I have a team of people that will support our brand logistically. All of these things that I had to do everything myself as a one man gang. This weight is lifted off my shoulders. And now I can focus on the components of the branded business that I excel in: package design, blend development, pathway to market, all of the things that I've always done outwardly, that you've seen me do outwardly, or seen out there that are definitely a byproduct of my effort and my touch. Now that's all I have to do. So now I get to do more of that. And that's powerful for me, and that's powerful for the brand. And it's powerful for our team.
Yeah, and when I was thinking about this interview this morning, I was thinking about the last 2 years, especially with the
Hmm.
pandemic, and
Oh
how
yeah.
it just changed everyone, and it changed everyone's perspective about what they're doing and about just business and life in general. How did that
Hmm.
kind of your decision, like your decisions leading up to this acquisition?
I mean, the pandemic was part of our pathway to acquisition, because during the pandemic, we pivoted and began to directly connect with our consumers. Although I've always made a point to be as accessible as possible, and that's part of our brand's genetic overall. I think when the pandemic kicked off, and I can only speak for myself personally, but I realized very quickly, like, oh, I haven't even scratched the surface of leveraging social media in the way that I could be, to be as responsible as possible to our brand and to our consumers. So I dove in very heavily. And, along with most people, I think in our category, if you didn't see exponential growth during the pandemic, you were just simply asleep at the wheel. I mean, it was nothing short of a newfound boom fueled by consumption in our industry, and our brand grew exponentially during that period of time. And my touch with consumers became even stronger than it had ever been before. All of these added up to a very enticing picture for a potential suitor.
Well, and I think too that's what you're going to be able to bring to STG. I think showing them that human touch and being super
Hmm.
accessible, because I think that that's changing in the cigar industry. It used to be that you could just put out a product and send out a press release, and that was that. But now I found that, especially with doing deep cuts, is that a lot of consumers want to know the faces behind their brands. They want to see that human touch. They want to know the story. It may not, like you said a few minutes ago, they may not want to know all the, you know, this is how many hours I spent on a computer this week. This is
Hmm.
the, logistic problems that we dealt with and all this stuff, but they want to know the story. And I think that they appreciate that cigar brand or that product far more when they can attach it to a face. They can see that
Hmm.
human touch. They know that when they post on Instagram that it's not just some random person, hired out of college to manage that account who's just going to send them a smiley face and that's going to be it. Like,
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
a person. So I'm thinking that that's what you're going to be able to bring also, and show STG like this is the Matt Booth effect. And if you can somehow, you won't be able to replicate it, but if you can like plant little seeds, in all these brands of this is how you do it, then all
Hmm.
these brands kind of prosper from it.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that this is a relationship of true mutual benefit and a real partnership. And I know what that looks like because I also know very well what it doesn't look like over the years of being active in business, right? So this is a relationship that I'm wholeheartedly embracing and fully vested in. And I think that they're going to learn a lot from me. And I also think simultaneously I'm going to learn a great deal from them. This is an opportunity for me to continue to grow in the cigar category, um, as a creative director, as well as in my business overall as a businessman. So um, uh, I couldn't be more excited, to be quite frank, if we're being frank, frankly speaking.
Well, one thing I was excited about from this is that you're still going to be at, like I said, like the trade show coming
Hmm.
up. If
Yeah.
like, we acquired Oots, we're not going to be there now. Is that you're still going to
Hmm.
be there, and you knew how. I saw you were speaking to Michael Herklotz the other day, so I kind of saw
Hmm.
that you were saying like how important you knew it was important for you to be there, regardless of if the overall STG might not have a big presence at the show, but you need to have a presence at the show.
I mean, I think this year it's critically important. Like I said, my chief mission at this point is to touch as many people as humanly possible. You know, and to get my message out there. I do your show, and however many people watch this that have not seen me speak on this matter before now have the download direct from me, and
Hmm.
then they can at least take the authentic message, the truth, and process that how they see fit or how they're capable, right? But it's my job as the continued caretaker for this brand that I founded in my apartment in 2003, to make sure that I get that message into as many mind pots as humanly possible.
Yeah, and also you have like new releases to promote at the show this year.
Oh,
You
of
have
course.
13th
Oh,
anniversary,
yeah. Also, there's that. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes.
and you have a new, what was it? Uh,
So there's 13th anniversary,
right,
there's Payback Nicaragua,
right.
and Farce Nicaragua.
Okay. Have you announced the first Nicaragua?
No, not yet.
So that's something people can look forward to in a short amount of time. So what can you share about each one of those releases? And I know you don't want to share everything, but kind of tease people as to what to expect?
Well, 13th anniversary is highly sexual. We made it with AJ. It's a Nicaraguan Maduro, all composed with tobaccos from his farms. And it's in line with the highly erotic experience that you have come to understand is very present in our anniversary series. It's fantastic. Moving on, both Payback and Farce Nicaragua, we will proudly manufacture with our partners at Hoya, expanding the sub-brand collections that we make with them to 3. You know, they currently manufacture Payback Connecticut for us proudly, and they will also add a Nicaraguan extension to those 2 collections as well. The blends are Rockstar, and they are intrinsically Hoya in nature. You know, so I think people are really going to enjoy them. 1, I know I do. And 2, it's part of my overarching vision for the brand that we will be a house of experience, and that, you know, strategically I work with different factories to provide these vastly different experiences in terms of our blend composition, you know, because you could give the same blend, the formula for Farce Maduro, and you could give that to AJ Fernandez and he would make it, and the cigar would be fucking amazing, but it would literally blow your doors off because he would do it in his style with his touch, right? And so Farce Maduro is comprised of 2 different broadleaf components, San Andres Maduro and some Nicaraguan C98. It's meant to be a powerhouse cigar, but the way and the style of touch that the Venturas have, you know, this becomes a very flavorful, sophisticated medium body experience. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to work with the right people in connection with the right projects, if that makes sense.
Well, what is it like working with AJ?
I love AJ, and he loves me. We're both crazy as fuck, but we love each other, you know? And I think I honestly, man, I remember the first time I walked the floor of his factory, I was taken back to like my first several visits to a cigar factory. I was so excited because I was looking at the product on the rollers tables, and I was like, look at these cigars. Look at how beautifully they're rolled. And that's not a slight against anyone else we work with, but it was definitely on another level and noticeable, you know. And I think that he has, it's so impressive to me that he has built such a large machine in terms of manufacturing prowess, but maintained a level of quality that is typically reserved for a far more intimate facility, you know. And I think that that's something that I'm very proud of in terms of having him as a manufacturing partner. And I don't want to, you know, put words in anyone's mouth, but I'd have to assume that he would be proud of that too, and that that's a chief focus for him. Because if it wasn't, it wouldn't be present or part of the nature of his factory.
And I know that collaborations are a big part of what STG is kind of focusing in on right now. You've seen a lot of really interesting collaborations come out of STG, different brands like Diesel in particular. What if you could choose anyone in the industry like that you haven't had a chance to work with yet? Is there anyone that comes to mind that you would love to kind of collaborate with on something that's, I guess, branded Room101?
White Owl. I would rock a collab with White Owl in a second. This is my uncle's go-to lifetime cigar, and it has such a delightful little graphic of an owl sitting on a branch. And I always imagined that if we could like somehow impose my face on that fluffy little owl, just looking out at you from the little perch, I think that would be very nice. I don't know that they would want fuck all to do with something like that, but I would be very enchanted to participate in a collaboration of that nature.
Wow. Like I would, that's so like left field. Like I wouldn't even think about you wanting to collaborate with White Owl.
Well, look, man, White Owl is the first cigar that I smoked. White Owl is the cigar that my uncle continuously goes back to when his supply from me has run dry. This is a cigar like there are several. I mean, even like Baccarat, things of that nature. These are the cigars that you don't see posted on TikTok, but these are the I smoke every day to smoke something, cigar smokers cigars, and they will forever be a staple in our category. And I know that's funny to say because I deal in boutique and very artisanally dressed products, but this is a cigar smoker's cigar, man. So you know, um, what better product to mix with than a foundation level product for smokers?
Yeah, and it reminds me of Jonathan Drew a couple years ago at TPE gave the speech about segmentation and about how he built the Drew Estate brand and saying that you needed something that got you into the category, that got you into
Hmm.
cigar smoking, and you couldn't start somebody. You could try to, but he says it's very hard to start somebody off at like the underground level. Like you
Yeah.
need something entry level that gets people kind of into the motion, and then have something else middle grade that you kind of graduate them into, and you build them up to that pre super ultra premium, as he calls it, like level.
Hmm.
And how that's always stuck with me. So it makes, like, when you explain it like that, it does make sense.
Oh, I think a great deal of brand owners should be thanking Jonathan Drew for affording them a vehicle to introduce uh, to new smokers and new smokers to us as a marketplace, right? Acid
Oh,
is.
definitely.
I don't want to use the term gateway because that would be, someone might take a clip from
Misconstrue
this
it.
and say, "Look, they have gateway products, man," and that's not the case. But it is a way that it is. There's less of a barrier to entry there for a person that's interested in getting into it. It's softer to the touch in many ways, and it's like you said. It's also about getting someone into the mechanics of the ritual of enjoying the moment and enjoying a smoke, and there's something to that. So, I personally say thank you to Jonathan Drew, and I think many other people could make the time to text him and say thank you today. His phone's gonna blow up. He's gonna be like, "Why the fuck is what the fuck is this? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you." Matt Booth said thank you. We'll see. It would be funny if it happened, but
Maybe we'll cut this clip out and we'll make it like a Instagram post and see if we can start a viral
yeah,
sensation. Thank you,
yeah,
Jonathan.
yeah. And how crazy was it? How crazy was it that in the beginnings and the rumblings of some of the regulatory stuff that he was, that acid was attacked, right? And a lot of fingers were pointed at that. And what they should
Hmm.
have been doing is protecting it.
Yeah. Um, as we kind of get towards the tail end of our interview, there was one. I was thinking about all the different interviews that you and I have done over the years, and I went back to Brand Magic, and
Oh,
something
yeah, man.
and something
One
came
of
up
the
about it.
finest articles ever written.
And just something this came up about it yesterday when I was going through it, and I was thinking, I was like, that was like the first time that, like I said, you and I really connected, and we did this
Hmm.
article, and I was wondering, here it is, 2022. That article was years ago. It might have been like 2018, maybe. It was like when I first started.
Yeah, it was like 17, 18, something like that.
Yeah. So, what would be your definition of brand magic here in 2022?
Absolutely no different than in that article. Brand magic is a cosmic science, and it's a composition of elements that many are intangible. And I think, I've been fortunate enough to, for some odd reason, been born with an innate knack for putting brands together and branded products together. And I think that as long as you keep the soul in the product, I think that this is the core of brand magic, is that you produce a product and you offer a brand that has a soul. Because
So,
whether or not someone can outwardly identify that, right, or verbalize it, I think that everyone is receptive to that. And the products hit differently, the brands hit differently, people absorb their message differently, and I think the nucleus of all brand magic is soul and authenticity, which kind of go hand in hand. Sometimes not, but in this case, I'm going to say they do.
because I was thinking about brand magic and knowing that you're going to continue, thankfully, to have a role in Room 101 going forward. And now it's like your brand magic should be even bigger now because, like I said, there's certain things that you probably had to worry about before that kind of not hindered you, but it was, I know for me, like during the day, it's like I'm not just writing all day. I'm working on emails, I'm responding to people, researching certain things, and before I know it, it's like 4 o'clock, and I'm like, I got an hour to, I have the hour to go, and it's like, and I got other things to do after work. So to have certain things kind of taken off your plate, like I can only think that your brand magic and your ability to practice brand magic will be even wider now.
My brand magic just got a massive dose of steroids.
Yeah.
So I'm just excited about what, we're going to be able to achieve, in the near future as well as long term. Like, it's just very exciting to me as a brand builder and a continued participant in the process in this space. I couldn't be happier, man. And I couldn't be happier for our brand and also, ultimately for our consumers, man, because this is a tremendous win for our brand family, and that 100% includes them.
Yeah, and I know somebody. I won't. They were making a big deal about. They said that you should have told your shadow army first, and I was like, that's not how business works. Like, you weren't going to be able to probably let that announcement come out first. To those.
We actually informed our shadow army in real time as the announcement rolled out. They all received a message directly to them in their email.
Yeah, and I got it too.
They were the first people to be informed, actually.
Exactly. I just think it was, I know. I just think it was people trying to stir up. It's funny how personal. I think it's a good thing, even though it's probably annoying to be in that position. I think I've been in that position with certain things I've worked on in the past where people just take it way so personally, and that they have.
I don't think it, Antoine. I really don't think it has to do with people taking it personally. I think that people see, if people can see past the tip of their nose, they see the power in this relationship. And therefore, if not aligned with us, they could probably feel threatened by the potential of what could be to come. And so they will now scramble to try to position themselves around the message, to try to leverage it, to make it to their advantage, to gain some ground. But one way or another, we're coming. So have a nice weekend.
I know since you've been on here last time, at the end of every interview, I usually ask common questions now to everyone.
Okay.
And I don't think I asked you those questions when you were on last year. So the first of those questions is, what is your why? What motivates you to do what you do?
My son, my family, to give them a life that I could have never dreamt of, and to make sure not to spoil, but to give solid ground beneath his feet. My dream for my son is that I can equip him with an understanding of business that I didn't have as a kid, and an understanding of how he can create a system where he can sustain life in a way that's far more in his control than in the control of others, and that he could have the platform he needs to pursue his dreams. And that's why I do what I do every day.
The second of those questions is, someone comes to you and they say, Matt, I have an idea for a business. It might not necessarily be a cigar business or related to tobacco, but they have their own idea for whatever business thing that comes to mind, and yet they don't know how to get started. What's your advice to that person to get rolling and get started with their idea?
I tell them, first thing you have to do is 7:30 tomorrow evening. You have to meet me in the men's locker room at the local YMCA. Wear only a towel. Kneel on the ground. Cup your hands. I will arrive. I will urinate into your cupped hands. And from there, I will explain to you the rest of the story.
Okay. And then after that part, what advice do you have for that person just to get started in their own?
Well, look, man, the chief component to my and I don't want to be so forward as to throw the word success around in this conversation, but tempered with humility, I would say that the key, or one of the key ingredients to my success, is that you sit face to face, fiber optically, now, Antoine, with the most stubborn person that you have ever come across in your lifetime. And this brand should have never succeeded. This should have never worked. You know, we've fought through and against things that, quite frankly, would have, and I have watched them best some of the most capable competitors. And so, they say right time, right place. I always say right time, right place, right person, because I think it's a combined effort, because the wrong individual or the wrong brand could be aligned, with that time slot cosmically and not work out. You know, I think the key to any business endeavor is to put the blinders on, to focus on your goals, and to not stop no matter what, ever, because it's never a question of if, it's only a question of when it's going to work. But your when might be 15 years in the future. So you have to make sure that you have the stomach for the business.
It just goes back to the whole thing about patience. Most people, when I ask that question to, they say, or I ask them, what have they had to learn in order to be better at their job or what they do? They say patience, because so much of our culture right now is based on instant results and instant gratification, that patience is like not the idea. Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
success, as however you define success, it could come with a couple months worth of work, but it
Mm-hmm.
usually takes a couple of years, and
Yeah.
people they don't want to think in terms of years anymore. They want to think in terms of like next year at this time.
Seconds.
Right. Or yeah, like I want that instant result. I want to release this press release and have this item sell out. I want to
Mm-hmm.
make this announcement, and my phone just like dies because I'm getting so many
Mm-hmm.
instant messages and stuff. Or I just want to accomplish this. I want to make $1 million by the time I'm 30, and they have no idea. But it's like, why? And like, what are you going to do? What sacrifice are you going to make in order to do that? And I think that a lot of people don't want to think about sacrifice and patience, and that it takes time to build something up. You just don't launch it or start it and see results right away.
That is correct. And quite frankly, I would echo your sentiments, but I would add another word, because I think, in addition to patience, it takes perseverance, and that's different. Patience to me says waiting. Perseverance to me says patiently fighting.
Awesome. I was speaking to Tony Gomez last week.
Oh, skyscraper! I like him.
He said, I told him I was going to be speaking to you this week, and he said, ask Matt about Acapulco.
Oh dear. Oh my. High
That's
tone.
what I was like, I feel like that's a story that I don't know if it's
Ooh.
what's going to become of that. I was like, but I'll do it.
You know, there are far too many intimate details, and we've run so short on time. But I would be very, very delighted to share that experience with you at another time.
I look
We
forward to it.
we survived that place and ourselves that night.
I don't even know. I don't know if I even want to know the story.
I mean, you might. It's fun. It's like a Tuesday night in the cigar business back in the day. So I mean, it's delightful. But we'll chat about it over a fine Room 101 gin driven beverage at the trade show.
Okay. Well, I was about to say, I think that's a good point to kind of end off on. We're all getting ready for, like I said, to travel to Vegas, and I'll be there that weekend mostly.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna make an effort to stop by and see you.
Please
I'm sure
do.
you're gonna have a line of people, so it'll be like Disney World trying to get into the Matt booth.
I'll be
Um,
there chatting them up as I do. It'll be fun.
yeah.
We'll have a nice
So
time.
hopefully I get a moment with you and
Oh yeah,
to chat and to see you in
you know you
person.
will.
It's been a couple of months since I've seen you in person, so looking forward
My
to
man,
that.
you always and forever have a reserved seat at my table.
Well, thank you so much. And thank
Mhm.
you for making it. Like I said, you're the first person to make 3 appearances on Deep Cut. So you've made one in every season that we've had so far. So you were the very
Boom.
first interview, and then you kind of helped us close out last year. And now here you are. It's been shocking. We've gotten 30, what is it, 30 some episodes done this year so far.
Nice, man.
So
Nice.
you're episode 33. So
Perfect.
yeah.
I'm honored, man. Thank you for having me back. Most people ask that I never come back, so this is amazing.
Well, it's always a good time to talk to you. And like I said, congratulations on selling or being able to make this next move with Room 101. And I'm very
Thank you.
interested in seeing what becomes of it. I here next to me, I have a box of Johnny Tobacco Knot. So every day I have
There you
like a
go.
little moment where Room 101 pops into my mind.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward
We
to
have a
seeing
knack for doing that.
sort of to seeing what else comes out of. I'm sure there's going to be some fun collaborations and fun just releases in general. And I'm glad you're still working with Ventura and all that kind of stuff
Mhm.
because they do some pretty interesting things. And Henderson
The
is,
future's bright, my man. The future's
yeah,
bright and it's wide open, and I couldn't be more excited, man.
yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming on today, and I want to thank everyone for watching. Like I know people are probably watching on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube right now. So wherever you're watching, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification button if you're on YouTube to be notified anytime we have new interviews. We try to do one interview a week. The July schedule is going to be off a little bit because, like I said, we're actually going to be in Vegas at this big
Mm.
trade show. So there'll be a lot of video, hopefully, content coming out of that. So the schedule might be off a little bit in July, but we'll be back to it as soon as possible. And if you want to watch this interview in its entirety or any other interview, just go to deepcutslive.com. And if you're listening to this on any other podcasting platforms, Spotify or iHeartRadio or Apple Podcasts, just make sure you hit that subscribe button and also review this podcast. You can leave a nice comment for Matt Booth if you want in that review. Any reviews kind of help us to improve what we do here and help me with the interview process. So thank you again. Thank you, Matt Booth. And thank you everyone for watching. And until next time.